What's up, y'all? I'm Javar. This is DUSAFARMS, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about common mistakes made in deep water culture, or DWC. Before we get started, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the video if you enjoy it, as well as turn on those post notification bells so you don't miss out. And if you just like to, chat with other growers and join the community, head on over to the Discord server. It will be linked below in the description as well as in the comment section. And without further ado, let's get into it. Mistake number one, and that's not having enough aeration. And what I mean by aeration is pretty much the oxygen being provided by your air pump, which is the bubbles in your reservoir, right? And that's just not having enough bubbles. And I fell victim to that as a new grower. Decided to get the cheapest pump I could find, or just a cheap pump came with the kit I bought. It was just a cheap pump, it didn't produce enough bubbles for what I needed to not run into root rot, which a lot of these mistakes can lead you to running into root rot. So what I would suggest doing is get a pump that produces a fourth of air per minute. So say you have a 4-gallon res, or you have a 5-gallon bucket filled up. It's about 4 gallons total. You got to leave some space in there. I would suggest getting a pump that produces 1 gallon of water, or 1 gallon of air per minute. So in return, that's 60 gallons per hour. Some pumps are going to say per minute. A lot of them are going to say per hour. So try to get something that's 60 gallons per hour. And then say for every other plant, you just keep multiplying that so you know what you need. And you're going to have optimal amounts of oxygen. And you won't have to run into not having enough. Mistake number 2 is your temps. Oxygen and temps are they're like the two most common ones. It's something I dealt with a lot, and that's what led me to running into root rot. But yeah, your temps are too high or too low. It's easy, you want to try to keep it. It's recommended around 68 degrees, but we all know some people keep their house at 68 degrees. Some people keep it a little warmer. Maybe room temperature is usually 75. I keep mine at 68, but you got to think, your lights and all that. And most people keep their grows in the 70s total. So you got to think it's hard to get your water to 68 degrees, especially with a air pump that's producing heat, pushing air into air stones inside of the buckets. So it's pushing heat pretty much inside of the buckets to produce that oxygen. So it's already going to be a little bit warmer in those buckets under direct light. It's already going to be warmer naturally in the tents as opposed to the regular ambient room temperature. And it's hard to keep it at 68. In the winter, you may be able to open a window, run some AC, portable AC unit, and keep it at 68, but it's hard. What I would suggest doing is try your best to keep it around that. Maybe don't go below 64, because around 64, below that, you'll start to run into some issues like stunted growth, and your plants are going to grow as fast. And if you go above, say, 75 without optimal oxygen output, that's when you're going to put yourself in that bracket of possibly running into root rot due to the temperatures being too high. But I've seen people run upwards of 80 and they're fine. They got optimal amount of oxygen being provided through the air pump, so it's going to kind of combat it. So if you can't keep the temps down, at least get an air pump that provides enough bubbles to where you don't put yourself in the likelihood of running into root rot. Number 3 is going to be your water level, and oftentimes when I meet new growers, a lot of them have their water level filled up too high. I definitely did that, and that's usually one of the first things I ask, your temps and everything, and I also ask what the water level is. And most times people have it filled up right to the net pot. They don't have any space. There's no gap between the water and the roots to give those roots at least a portion of the roots to give them some space to breathe. So all that oxygen you're producing, it's just there. It's not helping anything because the roots are being suffocated. They're having to hold their breath underwater. So what I would suggest is not filling it up so high. If you have a net pot, go 2-3 inches below, fill it up right there to allow a little gap in between, having some space for your plants to breathe, and as well as the plant placement within the net pot itself. I would suggest try to put the plant somewhere around halfway in the net pot. You don't have to put it all the way at the bottom, not all the way at the top. Put it like halfway when you're placing it in there, and then from there, you're going to allow enough gap between the bottom of the where the water starts and then where the plant's roots are. So there's going to be a space for them to breathe some of that oxygen. As well as when you're doing the water placement, sometimes you use rock wool or whatever you're using when you're transplanting it. I do direct to seed, but I've also done things like placing clones inside of DWC, and you're using something like rock wool. Well, if that water is bubbling, or if it's filled up too high, it's touching that rock wool, so it's causing it to be oversaturated, which in return the roots aren't going to search for anything. You're likely going to some stuff's going to happen, and they're just not going to grow because there's no need to, because the water is right there, and you're also suffocating the roots that way. So one thing is check that water level. Try to have it between 2 to 3 inches below the net pot. Number 4, your nutrients aren't mixed properly. Now in DWC, your plants have direct access to the nutrients, but guess what? Just because it has direct access and it can pick and choose what it needs a lot easier, well, guess what? It still needs to have those things there, and if you don't have them in the correct order, it's going to mess some stuff up. Nutrients can cancel out each other. Say if you use silica and you put CalMag in before silica and then you put the silica in, then you're going to see a huge difference. You're going to see that cloudy, you're going to see it when you put the silica in there, you're going to see a little film build up and stuff like that because it's mixed improperly. So when following nutrients and any additives, look up like how they need to be. So if you're running silica needs to be first. Give it some time to actually fully dissolve. Everything you mix in there, give it time to dissolve. Just because it looks like it's not there, just give it an extra mix. You want to make sure everything's stirred in. You can give time in between adding each nutrient, but silica, make sure it's really mixed in there. And then add CalMag based nutrients and your additives. So also within nutrients, you have mixing companies. Try not to mix. Say if you're running Athena, try not to go to a counterpart and try to add theirs, because everybody has their own ratio. Every company, they make their nutrient lines to be ran like with their own stuff. So if they have it formulated to run with their stuff and you run it with someone else's stuff, you can still do that, right? But some stuff might not go well together because it wasn't produced to, it wasn't made to go together. They had something high in nitrogen here, whereas they had something, the NPK ratios are off. So things might be a little bit different. So it's going to be optimal for you to run that company's nutrients all the way through. Also, your nutrients, when you're doing it, try not to do organic stuff in DWC. Yes, it is possible, but DWC, you just want to keep it sterile. You want to keep it clean. You want your nutrients to be fully dissolvable. You don't want any organic matter floating around in the res. You don't want anything that's separating from the water, because anything that's not dissolving and it's separating from the water, it's going to act as root rot. It's going to pretty much it's going to gunk up in there, clog up your air stones, clog up your roots. It's going to like suffocate them pretty much, and it's going to act just like root rot. Lastly, with nutrients is mistaking like the discoloration or the staining in the roots for root rot. This is something common, something I did, because not all nutrients are created equal. Some have dyes, some don't. The ones with dyes are going to discolor, the water, and that discoloration is going to stain those roots. So it's perfectly fine. It's going to look like ramen or chow mein or something like that. It's fine as long as there's no like biofilm on it, like a buildup of like some slime. You're good. It's just newt staining and you don't have anything to worry about. Now let's talk about light leak. Now with the DWC buckets, you want to keep it, the light, you want to keep the light out. You want the light on the plants and not in the bucket. And it's sometimes, it's easy, just to get a black bucket or, a bucket that isn't like translucent, isn't that transparent, so it's not allowing any light to get in there. Or you could spray paint it or cover the bucket up. Now that's like the go-to factor right there. That's the go-to problem. That's like the go-to solution right there. But also with that, what's also forgotten often is the fact that you still have a net pot up there, and maybe your hydrogen clay pebbles may not be like covering all the net. They may not cover all the holes, which is allowing light to penetrate through one of those holes into the bucket. It may just be a small amount of light, but that small amount of light can be detrimental. It can cause algae growth and all types of pathogens and stuff, which guess what can lead to root rot. So make sure to keep the light on your plants and out of your buckets. All right, here's another mistake, and that's plant count. Yeah, having too high of a plant count, that's something I did. I went with 8 plants in a 4x8 area, which nothing is wrong with that. Per 4x4 8 area, it is 4 plants. That's cool, there's plenty of space to work around and stuff. But I also probably could have just did 4 plants total in that entire 4x8, vegged them out a little bit longer, and just satisfied having bigger plants and a smaller plant count, especially in just DWC. Because in DWC, we already get that rapid growth. Things are already growing fast because the plants have direct access, and it's just rapid. That's why a lot of people get turned to DWC. Everything is just a lot faster. So guess what? With that being faster, you can kind of cut back on the plant count and just grow bigger plants. Because in DWC, the more plants you have, the workload is just going to go up, right? You're going to have each individual bucket, unless you have them RDWC. Now, what I would suggest, if you're going over 4 to 8 buckets, I would suggest going with RDWC. Just hook all the buckets up, have one res, and you can control everything all at once. Because once you pass, 8 buckets alone, doing each individual water change and adjusting them and everything like that, it was just time consuming. And if you want to do more than that, you could definitely, if you want to do DWC. I know people that do lots of plants in just DWC, but I would suggest making it easier on yourself and just going with RDWC if you want to increase the plant count. Mistake number, I don't know what we're on, but mistake number pH, EC, or ppm, right? That's the mistake. We're talking about having the incorrect pH, EC, or ppm. And it's normal in DWC for the pH to swing. The plants have direct access. They may uptake some nutrients and leave behind some water, which in return, is going to increase the pH, or vice versa. They may just consume water, leave back some nutrients, and that's going to decrease the pH. It's going to fluctuate a lot. It's fine. It's fine. You could pH it at 5.8 when you put it in there. By the end of the day, it could be at 6.3 or 6.3 the next day. It can move quite a bit, and as long as it stays between 5.5 and 6.5, you're good. Those are good ranges for the plant to uptake some nutrients. You don't have to sweat it. When I first started, I was pHing every day, sometimes multiple times a day, to keep it at 5.8, And you don't have to do that. The plants, they know what they're doing. They're moving things around. And if you want to, dive a little bit further into this, I actually did a video on not adjusting my pH. Adjust it right away, but don't adjust it during it. Let them be as long as it stays within those ranges. And just continue to monitor them daily so you know where you're at and you know if you need to adjust or not. And you can see exactly what they're uptaking, because with checking the pH, you can also check your EC or ppm. So you're able to see things like, hey, are my plants absorbing the nutrients I put in there? Is it going from 600 ppm up to 700? Okay, the plants, they're wanting more water. I can cut back. And that's how you're going to know that you can save a lot on nutrients and not have to add as much, because you're able to see exactly how much they're uptaking. So make sure you monitor that EC, ppm, and the pH. Another mistake is not keeping it clean with your grow. You want to keep it clean in general, but I get it. Sometimes things build up, but where you don't want them to build up is in your bucket, because guess what that's going to lead to? You guys got it now. I feel like Dora the Explorer. But yeah, you want to keep it clean. And with cleanliness, just if you see anything, you're trimming, a leaf falls in the res, take it out. Just some things, stuff gets in there without you knowing. So when you're doing your monitors or your EC, when you're doing that and checking your pH, see if there's anything in there, remove it. And if you're seeing a buildup in there, hey, just clean stuff out, change the water, whatever. And with changing your water, you want to change it weekly changes, bi-weekly at the least. You want to change it. You don't have to, because in my first grows, I've definitely gone the entire grow with only changing a handful of times, but I would recommend somebody changing it weekly or bi-weekly. It's just going to make things a lot easier for you. Things are going to stay clean and sterile, and overall your plants are going to be happy because they're not sitting in their piss and shit. Last mistake right here is not having a plan. Make sure you have a plan. Oh, plan for what? A plan for evacuation. No, but you want to have a plan for, you want to have backups. You want to have a backup pump. You don't have to get it right away. I did it right away. I know it's extra money. You're trying to be as cheap as you can. Some of us got it. Some of us don't. I didn't have it. I bought one pump, but it was recommended that I have two. But hey, I'm good. I'm gonna just go with one. But I would definitely recommend, now in my position, I did get pumps along the way. So say if you start off with a cheap pump, and then you eventually upgrade to, get your gallons per minute up or gallons per hour, and you get a bigger pump, well, keep that older pump as a backup. That's what I did. The pump I upgraded to, I kept it as the primary, and then I got a secondary pump just in case that pump goes out. And with things going out, your electricity can go out, power outages and stuff like that. And it's definitely happened to me during hurricane season. So yeah, you want to have backups. I don't have a generator or anything like that. If you got the money or you got a generator, that would be something useful. But, things are going to happen like that. Power outages can happen. And you got to think, once that oxygen is gone, you're pretty much in the cracking method. So your plants could definitely survive, but you're putting them at, hopefully it's back within that day, or if not the next day. I went 2 days without it. The plants started to look a little, they weren't happy with that for sure. But, you want to keep those things in mind. Just have a backup what you're going to do if things fail, or if you need to replace things, and just have fun during the grow. Enjoy the process. It's going to be fun. You're going to love it. And if you don't love it, hey, that just may not be your style. Try something else. Maybe try soil, try cocoa, try rockwool. There's all these different things to try out, and you may find one that you absolutely love and that you succeed at. And I hope you all succeed. And that's pretty much the end of this. I appreciate you guys so much. Everything I'm covering right now, I got a few DWC videos out there where I cover some topics and some tips. I'll also talk about the not adjusting your pH, stuff like that. I'll have them, their own little playlist. So make sure you check out those. If you have any other questions, you can hit me up, join the Discord, hit me up on Instagram, all that stuff. But until next time, guys, I appreciate you. Until next time, I think I said it twice. Peace.